This time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio, we're working on companion blocks to go along with this beauty, Diamond Star. We want to try to make a bigger quilt, and the way to do that is add more blocks. So join us as we start working on the next one, Farmer's Star. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Hi, and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Today we're working on our next block. This is a 16 by 16 block that we're going to use as part of the border around this beauty, Diamond Star. And this is out of the book Barnstarsampler by Shelley Cavanagh, or Cavanagh. I'm not sure which is correct. Oh, look at there. There's my scissors. I looked for these all day yesterday, and they're right there under the book. Okay, so this block, and let me give you a little peek at that. That's this block right here. It's a cute little block. It's got a 9 patch in each corner, and then it's got 4 little sub blocks that are at the top, bottom, and sides, and then it's got a little center block, and that's going to make that block. Now, like we talked about in the last video, we're making 4 of these blocks because we want one to be positioned at each side of this big block. And I'll be real honest with you, I sat down, full attention to sewing, and thought I cut all of the pieces to do 4 blocks. And I started yesterday sewing, and I had the biggest mess because I had enough to do 1 block, but then when I tried to do the math to get 4 blocks, somehow it just didn't all come together. And I think that that is a product of not really having sufficient time to sit down and do it the way I would prefer to do it, and I'm going to do it that way next time so I avoid this. I've got all the pieces cut now and segregated out into the separate 4 blocks. And this one, all of the subsets are put together. The others, they're kind of half and half. I did what I had. And why do I have a hammer on the table? Who knows? Okay, let's talk about Farmer's Star. This is a really cute block. It's very attractive. I think it's going to go with this one really, really well. And we're using the same color scheme that the book uses, so that makes it a little bit easier than some of the others we're going to have to do, where we're going to have to coordinate the colors for our project, not for the project in the book. So there are 3 pieces that go into this block. We've got a center block, which is a square in a square. We've got 9 patches, and they're done a little bit differently. Excuse me. The 9 patches are done just a little bit differently because there aren't actually 9 pieces of fabric. There's a little fewer because we're taking advantage of this being a single color with the 1 accent piece here. And then we have this block, which is really, it's 2 pieces that are flying geese. One is a little elongated, and then we've sewn them together to kind of make a long arrow. So those are the 3 pieces that go together to make Farmer's Star. And let me show you how it goes together. We're going to start with the square that goes into the center, and then we're going to take the, let's see if we got that all on camera, the 4 9 patches, and those go here. You see how this is coming together, don't you? Well, just wait till we add the last 4 pieces. Okay, and then we're going to put this one here, And remember, we don't have our seams allowed for when we're setting this up. They will draw in a little bit. But we're adding those 4 arrow pieces, and that's going to be the block. It's really very attractive. So we get to this point, and then we need to decide how we're going to sew it together. Really, any way you choose to do it is acceptable, but I think we're going to do this, and we're going to start here on the top and work our way down. So that means we need to attach this block to this block, and then this block to this block. We'll do that through all 3 rows, and then we'll do the two seams here to connect it all together. Now, we didn't have any sewing last time, but we are going to have some sewing this time. And I'm going to do my best not to talk all the way through these segments, so we can speed them up if we need to. Now, I'm going to change my foot out, so I have my little 1/4 inch foot with the guide. That is really, truly a big helper when you're working with these items that you want the accuracy to be right on target so that you don't get off track. And just because it's closer to me, I'm going to start down here. And the good thing about these is in putting them together, you don't have as many seams to match up within the blocks. Let's take some of these out. But you do want to make sure that you get the ends lined up or as close as possible. And see, we've got a little bit of an overlap there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow this 9 patch to sit about 1/16 of an inch in on each side. You see that? It's just barely peeking out underneath. And then that will be just a little bit better as far as doing that. And we can, if we have the opportunity, we can ease that in just a little bit. Now, to take advantage of some, what would we call it, daisy chain stitching here, I'm also going to do this one so that we can just make 1 seam, hit 3 of the connections, and move forward pretty quickly. Now these 2 fit together really well, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. And now this one we do have that, they're snowballs on the corner, but they're almost like a flying geese. So we're going to try to make sure that we get that point and we don't cut it off. Now this one fits a little bit better, the size of one square to the other. Sometimes you have that. And this one has a few more pieces that have seams. They're not meeting except in the one place, and the one place they do meet, the bottom fabric is the same fabric, so it's not going to show as much. And I'm just going to do a quick check here to make sure that all of our pieces are laid out the way we want them to be, and we're going to sew that. Make sure to set up your machine stitch. Okay, I'm going to have to turn mine off and on because it doesn't seem to be recognizing it. Okay, I don't know if I was hitting 2 buttons by mistake or what. And we're going to go back to that 2.4 stitch. That was fast. Let's get my scissors that I was looking for yesterday. I was having to use a big pair of scissors to cut threads. Now, as always, if you have questions about how these other pieces were put together, if you have the book, be sure to look at that because that'll give you some great information about how they go together. And if you have any questions about techniques, I would encourage you to go back and look at Diamond Star because generally speaking, the techniques to put all these blocks together is exactly the same. It's just that we're using different sizes and different shapes to make it happen. Okay, and that went together really fast. That's the power of being able to sew more than 2 pieces together at one time. When you're able to put 6 pieces into 3 pieces that quickly, that really speeds your process along. Okay, so we've got that. Now I will tell you that here, probably I would have liked that to be a little closer together, but I think it's close enough that it won't make much of a difference in the long scheme of things because like I've said many times, once you put a batting and a backing and you do your quilting, it's going to draw everything up together, and small little differences when they go together is not going to be noticeable. Now I'm going to go ahead and pin the other 3 pieces onto the 3 that we've just assembled so we can rock and roll this and have it together lickety split. Okay, there's one. The only one that I find that to be difficult is the one where we've got the pieces adjoining to the center, the very center block. And that primarily is because there are so many layers of fabric. And I was talking about this in a video, I think it was the last video, about how in some areas there were 12 layers of fabric. And even when I stopped and listened to that, I got thinking, 12 layers, is that really right? Well, let's check this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm counting 9. Let me check that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry, that's 6. And then in some areas you could have another, another piece of fabric getting under there unintentionally. But that was 6 layers. And when you're sewing 6 layers of fabric together on a regular machine, unless you've got a heavy-duty machine, you're going to hear it struggle just a little bit as it takes those couple of stitches over that area. I've got a 1908 treadle machine that probably could make really quick work at that, but I'm not as expertise on that machine as I would like. I think to be able to use it, you need to use it a lot and get the rhythm of the pedals and holding it and all of the functions that you have to do that our modern machine takes care of itself. So for now, we're going with the newer one. All right, I'm going to stitch this together really quickly. Okay, that's done. That was so quick. Regarding the bird's nest, if you have that happen, the best way to keep it from happening as a preventative is take a little tiny, whoops, this is still sewn on, a little tiny piece of scrap fabric and start sewing on it. And then allow the new fabric that you're sewing on to just follow it through, and you will find that you will not have that problem. A lot of people use that technique to sew additional pieces for another project, and sometimes it's called a leader ender. Okay, we're doing great. Let's take a look here on our overhead. There's our center row and our bottom row. Oh, our seams came together so nicely. And our top row. Now I'm going to take just a minute. We're going to have a little cut here. I'm going to press these, and then we're going to come back and put the two seams in the middle and see what this block looks like all finished. Be right back. Okay, we got those pressed. My iron started spitting out water and gave me a big old wet spot on one of these, but it's okay. We're just going to keep moving on. And in pressing that out, I can see now that all of our seams did match up really, really well. We've got some great points here. Our points on these are lined up. One's a little closer than the other, but like I said, I don't think that will make a huge difference. We kept the point here, we kept the point here, and this one's cut off just a tad, but not so much that it really, I think, is objectionable. And we're going to go ahead and get ready. We're going to pin these together. Now, when you're doing these two seams, you are going to have to look out for matching those seams up, because you want, especially where you have color changes, you want those to be sharp and dramatic and spot on. And we're going to start here with these two seams to the center block. And work from there out. Now, since we have the points of those flying geese, we are probably going to have to ease these together because we want the edges to come together nicely. So in areas where one piece is a little longer than the other, we just want to take a minute to pin it down so we can see where we're easing it in. And I think right here in this center block is where we're going to have the most issue. So I'm going to just give it an easy little tug, and I'm going to pin the middle. And I'm going to take a quick look. If I pin at the point that seam lines cross here, where does it come out? And it's pretty close. Can I adjust it over? That's a great question. Right there, I'm pretty dang close. So I'm going to pin around it. I'm going to give another pin back here. Okay, so you can see I've got in this, these are all pretty normal. But here I've got a pin on each seam. I've got one in the middle, and then I've got actually 3 pins here where the points come together. One back here far away just to hold it, to keep it from shifting. One here to hold the seam down, and then one that goes through both layers of fabric to kind of line up the points. And we will have to take that one out as we sew. So we're going to get started just on this one seam. And as we get to that corner section, we're just going to give it a light very light tug, just to keep the fabric straight. And then as we get to the point where that needle is going to come right in front of where that pin was standing up, we'll pull it out, keeping our fingers crossed that everything stays in place. We're still pulling on it just slightly to keep it straight. And that allows us to ease it in. If we pull too hard, because some of those fabrics are on the bias, they're going to pull out and they're never going to pull back into their normal shape. So you need to be careful. And all the way to the end. Another point that I'll give you is when you're using one of these feet on your machine that has a guide on the edge, when you're pinning, pay attention to where the end of the pin is. You want to have it in the fabric so that it's not having to compete with that edge guide on the foot, and your sewing will go much smoother. Okay, so here we've got it together. And our seams here matched up beautifully. I think we're good on the ends. Let's cut this off. This is our little leader. And we'll use it again and again as we need to. In the middle here where the points come together, we are a little bit off. And let's just, for discussion's sake, let's see what they are. It is off half, quarter, 1/8 of an inch, just barely 1/8. Now, if you're really close up and you're looking, you're going to see it. But if I hold it to here, do you see it? You don't see it. So that's going to be our guide for this. We could take it apart and remanage it. If it was more than that, it was further apart than that, I probably would. But I think I'm going to call 1/8 of an inch good. We've got a lot of things that we're dealing with here, a lot of different parts and seams and pieces, and you have to figure out what's important. We also have 4 of these to make. Okay, we're started there with the middle piece. We're going to work our way out. Oops, I don't think I got all the layers there. Okay, and then onto this end. It's so easy when you're sewing to get these out of alignment, and this is your opportunity to coax them back in. Okay, there we go. We've got that. Check our design really quickly, and let's sew it. Put our leader back in there. Okay, that one I didn't have to ease in near as much, and you're going to find that because no 2 pieces, no 2 blocks are going to be exactly the same. They're going to look the same, but they're not going to be the same. And let's see how that one came together. Oh, now that one, the points are right on place. We're a little bit off here though, which I find interesting. And to me, that's a bigger problem than this one being off. I think what I'm going to do is take a little section that stitches out right there and restitch that and try to pull it back into place. That's pretty easy to do. And just by over stitching something a half an inch or so, you don't have to worry about your other stitches coming out anytime soon. And if they were to come out, you're going to be quilting this project, so the quilting is going to hold everything in place. If you were unsure or fearful of that, you could always restitch the whole thing right on top of the first one. Okay, see, now we have a little tiny gap. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull that down just a little bit. And it could be when I did that little diagonal seam in there that I didn't get it quite at the diagonal, and that's what's causing it. Okay. And I'm having a little problem trying to figure out exactly where that is going to go. I was looking for my white pencil, but I don't see it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the seam line here on the back side of this, so I can see where the seam line intersects the seam on that join. And then from there, I can line that up with the other piece. And then if I pin on both sides, and I'm going to have to go back just a little bit further so I can ease in a little bit more. Okay, I think this is going to do it. And there's a bunch of pins there. We've got, take that one out. We've got 4 pins in a little tiny area. But if that's what it takes and this will fix that, it's well worth it. Okay, we're over stitching, and now we're coming to our new section. Tuck that seam right in there. And over stitching, and we're going to call that good. Okay, take our pins out. We had a little problem there, but I think we fixed it. Let's see how well we did. Oh, much better. There we go. So now we've gone to something that was off a good little bit to something that is really very, very close to being spot on. And that's it. Let me give it a little press one more time and we'll be back. Okay, here it is. That's our block. It came out really, really well. I love the block of blue. The points that come in, I like bringing the green in. It's very, very attractive. And now when we pair it up with our other block, there we go. You can see some of the similarities and how we're playing off shapes to bring it together. We've got this square here, we've got a square here. We've got the points of the arrow. We've kind of got that little arrowy shape here in the corners. And then the repeat of the blocks in green, great fit. Lots of play in this. And these are going to be, as you recall from our last video, sitting outside of this about that far. There's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 12-inch border between this big block and these little blocks. So we'll have some space. We can do creative things in that block, whether it's put a creative quilting pattern, whether we decide to put a colored strip in that big 12-inch border is yet to be seen, but we do have lots of options. So today we finished the Farmer Star block. And this is block 8 in this Barnstarsampler book. Whoops, I was going to try to get that to you. Block 8. We've used the same fabrics that we used for this block, and we've been able to bring in a second design to our quilt. Now next time we're going to be working on a second 16-inch block, and this one is going to be, where did it go? I think it's back the other way. The next one we're going to work on is Northern Star, and that's this one right here. And it's got a lot of points in it from what I can see. We're probably going to be doing more flying geese, which is not my favorite part of quilting, but we'll make it work, right? And then our last one that we're going to work on is the Tula block. And that's the one where we're going to have to work on changing up the colors in this block to match our design. I thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a lot of homework because I've got 3 more of these to make. And next time when I cut my fabric, I'm going to do a much better job of calculating out how many pieces I need so I don't have to go back and rework that again. For some reason, that seems to be the path I've been on lately with this project. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. You guessed it, at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Have a great week.